Namibia as a mid-income country, and Spain as a friend of Namibia. I'm putting this question to you because personally I come from the village. In my village, as we speak, they don't have electricity, basic things for them to emancipate from poverty. And of course, if I'm now living in the city of Windhoek, I can maybe agree that we could be classified looking at it from Windhoek perspective or major cities, and all that. But taking Namibia's history into consideration, having just emerged from apartheid and colonialism and all that, which make Namibia, I mean, this is known that we are the most unequal country in the world. So how do we deal with this dichotomy of being at one extreme end, you could say we are highly developed, and at the very majority, we are so ill-developed to a point that my grandmother still go to a well and fetch water in her bucket. How do we, I feel like something is moving around my stomach every time I hear this term, mid-income country. Of course, we should be praised for reaching that level, but at the same time, we are talking about 10% of the population, or what?
We have the passion for the language. I have a master's in Spanish, language and its culture. And I want to say this, that there are no opportunities for us to teach because of the IFID, whereby the Spanish government sends lecturers to Namibia to come and teach. So I want to know, what is the Spanish government doing in combating this problem? Not to take it away from the Spanish people who want to go and study outside, but what are you doing? What is the government doing to cater for Namibians as well who want to teach? For example, UNA. It's a great example that they are not taking in Namibians because of the IFID program that is providing the Spanish lecturers for Namibia, means that the door for Namibians is shut. And as much as you would want to be an inspiration, there's just no inspiration story to tell the next Namibian because the opportunity is just not there for us. So thank you.
But why is the door shut?
Because of IFID program. IFID,
IFID program.
Yes. So the IFID makes it possible for the Spanish lecturers to be sent to Namibia to come and teach, and not being Namibians to teach. Not to take away from the Spanish getting the job, but
to teach Spanish
in Namibia.
Ah, of course. But do you speak Spanish?
Yes, I do.
Ah, okay. Well,
my comment is more on young professions. You mentioned that Europe want okay, want migrants from Africa, but we also have programs where, for instance, myself and Sylvie, we went to study in Spain. We did programs. I did economics, finance, and computation, and whatnot. There are more students. So I think as African youth, what we want to see is that progressing engagement, not just for us to go study in Spain or in Europe, but also to become young professionals that can work not only in Africa, but also in maybe in cooperation with Europe. Instead of just going as immigrants, we can have that gap covered by the young professions. So when we are taking students or when we are training students from Africa, not just to leave them after the graduation level, but rather, mold them or train them and in that profession and make sure, or not make sure, but like also to, give them opportunities in that areas. I think one more thing that I wanted to comment is something that Mendeshi mentioned about the mid-income. Yes, mid-income. Yes, because Africa is not in Africa. Namibia is regarded as a mid-income country. But one point that Mendeshi is mentioning is about the gap between. I'm not sure if it's called the Gini coefficient. My economics is also going, but yes. So it's part of that. So I think the cooperation that we want engagement on that, international cooperation to engage on that, to guide us, not yes, to guide us on how to close that gap or how to go about it, because it's a pressing matter that has been, on the mouth of the households of all Namibians. Maybe not at international level, but in Namibia, it's really something that everybody talk about, the gap between the rich and the poor. So these are the things that we need to talk about when we are doing that. We are talking about this cooperation, like how to engage for instance, things like ESG of sustainability, and how to go about crossing this gap. One more thing I think on that, we want to engage the international cooperation on how are they how are they working towards that, because and this is now where Rico come in. We have, for instance, international organizations, and when you work in an international organization as a national personnel and as an expert, let's say I'm working for an international company that is from Spain. Let's say the national personnel, their packages, let's say, is determined by the labor act of the country, but the one of the experts is determined from the country where the international company is coming from. So is the international cooperation contributing to that inequality also? So we want this kind of gaps to, be engaged, try to close them and whatnot. I think, those are my points.
The first one is that of youth, and where you link it to demographic dividend. Yes, the numbers, youth, almost 60 or more percent the Namibian population, that's natural. Youth as demographic dividend. If you look at the rate of illiteracy that have gone down, you look at school enrollment that has gone up, you look at the number of graduates from institutions of higher learning. All these are very good elements for demographic dividend. But they also have the implication of pushing Namibia into the category of a middle-income country. So if the end would have to justify the means, wouldn't it then be logical not only for Spain alone, but for the Organization for Economic Development, which has set that benchmark of which should be the countries that qualify for it, to reconsider that element, because the way it is now is the means that is justifies the end rather than the other way around. Because with that constraint, it may have implications for the youth playing the role of a demographic dividend. It could become something that would be negative because opportunities would be closed. So I think that policy would be coherent if it recognizes that Namibia has moved into this category because it has been making progress or turning the youth into a demographic dividend. So then it should be incentivized. There should be incentives and opportunities. And some of it is what my younger sister there is advocating for. And this could not only be in the form of aid, but especially also opportunities for doing business. And I think that would help the youth more to promote demographic dividend rather than becoming a threat, because a lot of our young people are becoming very critical, and which is good for democracy. So that criticism should be able to generate and put ideas into practice, and Spain should help us doing that.
Several of them, but just going back to your question regarding whether certain things produced by a specific company here in Namibia could have a preferential treatment when reaching, for instance, the Spanish market. Well, there is a short answer and there's a long answer. The short answer is that's a EU matter, and that falls completely within the negotiations that all foreign trade with third countries outside the EU. It's led by the Commission itself. Actually, it's the very first topic that the Commission at the time took over from national countries. So that's the short answer. The long answer, and also I think it's because it's very interesting that we're having this discussion here at the university, and it's raising up many issues of how do you balance reasonable differential treatment with a level playing field. And I think that's has come up on several questions. So just to explain the rationale of why that's very unlikely to happen and why is it that we opt for other instruments to try to achieve something similar to what you are suggesting. The similar instruments is that we, sovereign states, keep the capacity to give certain advantages regarding the elements with which things are made. So basically, we have the right to give preferential financing. Even if you clearly said that you care less about the financing than you care about the market, okay? But that's how things stand. So we nation states can say, okay, this makes sense, it's a good idea, we want this to progress, so we will give cheaper financing. But once the product is finalized, it needs to access the market in the same conditions as any other product. And that's the way we work, because at the end of the day, if we think about it, that's the way the rule-based order operates. That's what we have things like the World Trading Organization for, because otherwise it would become impossible to manage. If we were applying different exceptions, not just to different countries, because, I mean, the World Trade Organization operates under the most favored nation clause. And the exception for that are, as we all know, are regional agreements. Okay, but imagine if we went for what you somehow are suggesting, if we taken to the extreme that you had different treatments per company and eventually per product. I mean, maybe someday with artificial intelligence that DJ was referring to, we'll be able to manage that. But currently, it's completely impossible. Okay. But we have other ways to give a head start to certain products, and particularly when they're coming from certain places, and we can talk about that anytime. Thank you.